Testing 1, 2, 3. Who's your daddy? Testing 1, 2, 3. I'm your daddy. God damn it.
I want the truth. You can't handle the truth. And the truth shall set you free.
Thanks for doing this, man. This will be fun.
Yeah.
It's a good day for it. I just sent off 2 invoices for jobs I've been having on all week.
Oh, yeah.
They're all gonna restart on Monday, so it's just like I'm in that sweet spot where you're in a holding pattern.
Oh,
So
yeah.
you feel accomplished, but you know that there's work coming in almost immediately. So it's just I just love that. That's my favorite.
You mean security for a brief
Yeah.
moment?
Yeah. To analyze it, fuck yeah, I am.
Yeah. No, I
How
know.
you been? How's Chicago treating you?
Good, but I can relate that it's so stressful, man.
Yeah, I had
By the way, well, you know what? Let me intro this real quick because I want to just jump in. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Face the Truth. I am super pumped about this one because this guy I've known him for a long time. He is one of the coolest guys I know in the art world. That is,
No.
don't get too. No, this guy's awesome.
Okay.
He's super talented. Early, even in like when I was first getting started in my career, he was a huge inspiration in so many ways. I love his work. I think he's one of the best caricature artists and exaggerators. He's a great cartoonist and illustrator. Everyone, please welcome the one and only Ed Steckley.
Hey man, hey everybody.
So now we're official. That's what I call an intro. But man, no, seriously though, it is really awesome to be able to talk with you again. It has been a long time. I think the last time I was trying to think about it, last time we actually hung out was I think in 2009. I think so.
It was at the ISCA. It was the MAD. They had a bunch of MAD people there.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of tagging along because I had done one thing for MAD or something. So it was
The
I'm
tag
setting my
along.
notifications off right now. That's one thing I forgot to do.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's something else I should have said in the intro too. Like, we're fellow gang of idiot artist buddies in that way. Like that's one of the things to me still is surreal. It was like such a dream come true the first time I ever got to work for Mad. When was the first time that you got to work with him?
I got into MAD. I got the call. It's 2004, I think it was.
Okay.
And I did such a good job. It was just one of those Fundellini pieces. It was a quarter page.
Oh,
or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
I did such a good job, and they were so happy with it. I didn't get my next job until 2017. So I hold the record for the longest time in between MAD jobs.
I don't know, man. I have similar experience. For years, I call it flirting. Sam Viviano was flirting with me for years. I would go to New
He's
York.
a flirt.
Yeah, I'd go to New York. He'd invite me to the office. I'm like, oh, he invited me to the Mad office. Oh, this is it, right? And he'd show me around. He'd show me the things, and then he'd say, okay, you can go now. And that happened so many times. And then finally, I think it was 2000. I think 2008 was my first time, and I was so excited. I'm like, dude, I'm in, because
was it that comedian thing?
Yeah. The first job I ever got
one.
was a 2-page full color spread with like 7 different comedians. And I'm like, dude, my first job was a 2-color full page. I'm in. And I don't think my next job was, I think I got my next job for them was probably 2 years later, maybe.
You did the Terminator. You did those ads. So one was like a Terminator.
Yeah, I did a Terminator ad.
The Sarah Connor takeoff. And that issue, didn't you have like 3 peppered throughout the issue? I don't remember
No,
what the bit was. I remember I looked at them. I don't remember what they were.
no. See, that's the thing that was
No,
frustrating to me too, is because you know, you know, pride will fuck with you, right? And I thought I think I'm pretty good at caricature. I'm being published all over the place. I feel pretty good about my work. I feel like I'm a great fit for Mad Magazine, and I'm thinking, oh man, they're going to use me all the time for my caricature work. No, after I did that full page or 2-page spread, I did the Terminator thing, which is like a very realistic rendering of a spoof of the real poster. Then
I
I did
remember.
a
Yeah,
Donald Trump family vacation spoof, which was also very realistic.
I can't picture
Crazy.
that. But yeah,
Yeah, I'll,
yeah,
I'll send you. I did a couple other pieces, but none of them were caricature. They were always like, they would give me these really complicated, like kind of spoofing posters. So I never really felt like I got to do the Mad stuff until the new Mad,
yeah.
which is a different thing entirely, because that's when I got my first Mad cover, and I just finished 3 covers for them recently,
Your
and then
first cover was the inside of the mouth one, right? With the
yeah,
Alfred and the uvula
yeah,
gang of idiots.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, thing about Mad is that I have full faith in Mad, the old Mad and the new Mad.
yeah,
Uh, mostly because they use me, and
yeah,
I'm always honored when anybody calls me for work.
exactly,
It's always a thrill, but they see you as a painter, which
yeah,
you are obviously, and you have this thing where you have a you have a process down, and all of your viewers know this, but it's worth repeating here for the one or two that don't know this. You have a digital process that looks very painted. You're one of the ones that kind of mastered the digital painting process where it doesn't look digital, and that's you are the stuff that you do is there's not many people that can do that. But I understand what you're saying about the caricature thing, because it's all I want to do. I've done
hmm
my first job for the new Mad when it moved to LA, when Bill Morrison, my good friend, was the editor in chief. I had to do this Hollywood Walk of Fame bit, because it was all about Mad Goes Hollywood, whatever, because they just moved. And so the bit was lesser known stars on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. So it was a bunch of the stars, but as in perspective, and it had bullet points. So and so best known for blah blah. It's all gags. And I said to Bill or Susie, I think I said, "Who do you want to be? Who should I be drawing? These are fictitious people." And I don't remember who it was. It was either Bill or Susie. Said, "Well, why don't you just put the new cast in or the new staff in? Use them." And I went, "Great." Because then I can kind of get in with, because I knew Bill. I had just started talking to Susie, but there was a staff of, I'm just going to say 10 people. I don't remember how many. And that's a great idea, because I can kind of endear myself to the new staff, and
yeah,
show appreciation. And there was a couple of people that, well, you really made me. Well, it's very nice. It's very nice. I just was like, oh, then I got really self-conscious about it.
yeah,
And so after that, I just started, whenever I have jobs that require unknown people, just like faces, then that's when I just throw my friends in. Jeremy Townsend, Jarrett,
yeah.
has been in a lot of my stuff. Even
That's
if it's
awesome.
not exactly him, I use him as a baseline. I love Jeremy. He's one of my favorite people. He has a great face.
Oh yeah, he's
As
awesome. Man.
Yeah, he was on your podcast.
Yeah, we had a fun time. That guy is hilarious, man.
That was a great one. That was one of the first. Well, I guess what, I'm gonna leave a timeline out of it, because I have no timeline in my head anymore because of COVID.
Yeah, I know. It's like the snap, man. The COVID snap.
Totally. I have no timeline. Yeah, go on.
No, but I agree with you though. Like there's a lot of people that have certain opinions about the new Mad. That's awesome. But I love it, man, and I feel honored to be doing it. Like they're the first ones that actually have let me do a bunch of caricature stuff for them. So that's really exciting because I don't know, I was going to ask you about this too, because, you know, it's weird. I mean, illustration is already a challenging in a challenging time. It's not being used as much, and it's so every job I get, I'm like, oh yes. And but it seems also that caricature in a way is under attack. It's not being used as much. It's not being appreciated as much. And I think people are terrified of it. I've said this before a few times, but it's only been in the last couple of years. I've been doing caricatures for like 35 years. And I've been working professionally for over 20 years. And this is the first time in my career where I'm being called a bully or a jerk for doing caricatures.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
people are, it's like walking on eggshells. Everyone's so sensitive. It's an offensive, insulting art form. And, you can barely, or at least I can barely post anything. I do a lot of, the only caricatures I really do right now are for Mad Magazine or like political things. And every single time it's a political thing, it's just every comment or whatever. It's just crazy stuff. Have you experienced any of that? Like that backlash for doing caricatures, or like just the lack of being able to do it? You know?
Yeah, as much as I love caricature, that's my first love. I never, throughout my career, that's always been only a small. If this is the spectrum of the average of my career, oh, this much will be caricature, this much will be humor.
Yeah, like
but caricature is something that I did a magazine cover recently for Hits magazine, and I got that it's a job that Sam Viviano usually does. And Sam, he had an obligation, so he couldn't do it. So he recommended me to do it. And one of the reasons I think, and I'm paraphrasing, but my caricatures are very safe. My caricature is the thing. It's what you put into it. It's what your baseline is. And this might be egotistical, I don't know, but my caricatures are they're not, I'm trying to think of the word. I don't want to say they're not biting, but they are a statement. But my caricatures are rarely mean, not mean. My caricatures aren't very extreme. I have had some jobs, you've had this, I know, where you do a caricature of somebody. I can't even think of a particular example. I just know it's happened a number of times. You do a caricature and it goes to the art directors, and there's always a round table of people. And well, can you reel it in a bit? Can you dial it down?
Yep.
And of course I'm happy to do that because I work for them. They don't work for me.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so I've had to do that. I've had a handful of jobs in the last 10 years or so where basically in the end it's pretty much, there's absolutely no exaggeration at all. I'm not a big, I'm a fan of portraiture, don't get me wrong, and I think to be able to do a proper caricature, you have to understand portraiture to do a proper caricature. You have to know how the face is built. And I don't have a lot of that experience under my belt, like what you do with the portraits, like the time covers. I don't have that much experience with it, but I know enough about the face where I can make it work, put myself into it and get beneath the surface of the drawing, but it ends up being so boring. And I think I also think, and I guess I'm analyzing a lot here, but I think it's because you can always tell. I can look at any caricature and a lot of illustration in general, especially editorial. You can tell what mindset the artist is in. If they like what they're drawing, it absolutely shows. If it's a job, and it could be any of the masters, you can look at it and just get a sense for he's not a fan of this celebrity, or she's not a fan of this movie, whatever, anything like that. I'm very aware of that. And that kind of, at the end of a job, that kind of goes on and doesn't, where it gets watered down safer and safer. By the end of that, I'm like, it's just, all right, can we wrap this up, please? I've been working on this for, 4 days. I only charge for 2 days.
Yeah.
And by the end, my mindset just like anybody, will be reflected in the drawing itself. So that's something that
Yeah, but
I think really cool about caricature. Yes.
I mean, I totally get what you're saying, but like I'm not a fan of Donald Trump. Drives me nuts. But I absolutely love drawing the guy. I love drawing him. He is so much fun to draw. I impersonate him in my stand-up. I can't stand the guy, but he is gold for so many reasons. So I mean, and I've had to paint him for lots of different things, and it's like the same thing. Like I don't like Putin, fucking hate the guy, but I painted him on a cover recently, and I had a blast doing it. So I mean,
that one.
I think I see what you're saying, like, because I've definitely had jobs where I have no interest, and I'm sure people can look at it and go, oh yeah, like I can tell he just did that one. That was a paycheck. Like,
right.
I did a cover recently like that where I just, first of all, everyone I had to work with was terrible.
Oh really?
They were just rude the whole time, and they were so. It's like they hire you because they say they love your work and everything, and then they just try to control every little thing. To by the time it's done, it doesn't even feel like your art anymore.
Right.
And just like you said, I have the, you know, I believe what you believe is that, hey, I'm working for them, so I'm just. You have to put yourself on the side, and you have to just be like, hey, I'm gonna do the best I can, but you're taking away so much of my abilities. You're you know what I mean, like, and that can be frustrating, where you kind of almost feel like you're working in you know, just it's like almost like a factory mode, just like, you know what I mean. I've had that before.
Production mode, yeah,
like I'm just all right, obviously I'm just gonna do this. And I had this on that same cover when I saw it published. Not only was it a frustrating experience, but then when I saw it published, they completely edited. They redid the lighting, or they basically bleached it out and then changed the hue and saturation and stuff. Like they did all this weird stuff. I'm like, dude,
really? Ugh.
Yeah, I actually when they sent me the proof, I told them, I said, can you just do me a favor and just don't put my name in the magazine. That's like, I don't want my name on this one.
Yeah,
like,
I've done that once. All right. So you know what? I don't want credit for this. It hasn't been a magazine cover, but I've done some. I do a lot of advertising stuff, and you don't generally get to sign that.
Yeah.
You know, it's the stuff that pays really, really well, but you don't get credit for it. And,
yeah.
But you know, oftentimes, sometimes I'll get a job where we'll give you credit. It'll be, you know, whatever, and that's fine. I don't really overthink that, but you can often well, this is I'm hesitant to say this next line because I know it's not always the case, but you can tell a lot by my signature. I'm not a big signature guy. I know there's artists that plan their signature in with the painting, and I was never that. My signature is always an afterthought, but I have two signatures. I have one that I just do this little E thing, and the other one is my name.
Yeah.
And when I was drawing caricatures at the theme park live, however long later, because those drawings resurface every now and then. People got Facebook and they scan them in, and they say, and every now and then one will come back to me, and I can tell you exactly what I was thinking, where my head was when I did that drawing.
Yeah.
You know how you can look at it and say, oh, it was raining that day.
Yeah,
you can tell because the airbrushing is kind of washed out, and the pencil lines are light. But some I wouldn't even bother signing. Others, it's just because they want to have a signature on it. So I would just like a doctor. And there's other ones where you could actually read it. Do you remember a guy named Kevin Berg?
That sounds familiar.
Kevin Berg was.
Did you sign his name?
Yeah.
I was going to say, whenever I do a bad one, I just write Grigor on it.
Yeah, I write Seiler on mine. It's terrible. Kevin was a guy when I was brand new. My second year drawing caricatures, I went to Great America in Chicago, and I worked for Gary Fosden. And Gary, I've got to watch Gary draw a lot. We became good friends and all that. And I was just kind of in awe at his drawing. It's one of those things I've never seen anybody do it like that before.
Mhm.
And he had a little frilly signature, so he would airbrush his signature. That's how good he was with an airbrush. But there was a guy there by the name of Kevin Berg who's still working. Every drawing he did, and I'm quite sure you could ask him and say, do you have off days, or are you ever unhappy with it? In my mind, his drawings were like, my God, everyone is so animated and it looks just like him. And how did he come up with that? And every single one, he wrote his name in, proper, not cursive or anything, Kevin Berg.
Yeah.
And it was just so legible. And I always admired that. I was always like, God, because I was smart enough to know that, even though I thought he was great, and I still do, that he's not happy with every drawing he's doing. Obviously, I mean, you do thousands of those things a summer. Some of them are you're just not going to be happy with.
Yeah.
So signature, real small, not obnoxious, just boop, boop, in the corner. I always admired that. I always wished I was that secure or had that much self-confidence, and that was long before social media.
Yeah.
You couldn't go on the internet and look people up for the most part, unless they had a big presence online. So I don't know, this is just a thought, but
That's
every now and
funny.
then one of those old drawings pops up.
I was just gonna say, like, that happens every once in a while. Someone will email me, "Hey, remember you drew me like in 2003 or something?" And I'm like, "Oh God, that's so bad." There's my signature, really big.
Oh yeah,
Like,
funny.
no, I'm very similar with illustration stuff. Like I always try to like hide my signature. I don't want it to pop out. I want it to. I don't want it to be a distraction. And that for me comes from my dad, because my dad's an artist. And when I was a kid, it would drive me nuts how he signed his paintings.
Oh really?
Oh God, it actually embarrassed me. And he knows about this, but this is when I was a kid. It annoyed me because
Nice.
he was like a wildlife artist, and he did duck stamps and trout stamps and all this kind of stuff. But he would sign his name Larry Seiler, but it would look like a duck. Like he would write his name so it looked like a duck, and I was like,
my God.
it's like it was like a logo, Larry Seiler, but it's literally a duck, and it would be on every one of his paintings.
I've got to Google that. I know your dad. Your dad's an artist. I knew that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with his work, but that's really funny.
For like that, like his first half of his career, or part of his career, he was a wildlife artist, and that's when he was doing that. But then he fell in love with plein air painting, and he's become a master. Like he's in all kinds of books and galleries and stuff, and he does over 300 paintings a year. He never stops. He's always he does sometimes 2 paintings a day. And now his signature is it's a lot better. It kind of blends in stuff. But it was because of that when I started doing work, I was like, I even when I was first doing graphic design at this magazine years ago, a buddy of mine, we were both illustrators, and he was from South Africa, and I would always try to like, I thought I was like trying to help him out. I'm like, dude, maybe not because he would do this amazing piece of art, and then it would just say Hugo on the painting. It's like, dude. Like all I see is your name, dude. Like,
right.
But he was like, no, it's very important. They need to see, who I am.
Yeah. I always say you can tell a lot about the artist by their signature.
Mm-hmm.
There's especially with like Instagram and all that now. You see these, these artwork and all that, and even if it's a little tiny thumbnail, like you'll see whatever the subject, caricature, no matter what their skill level, sometimes the signature will be prominent. Like, how long did it take you to do that? It's got curly cues and all that. I'm like,
it really bothers me. Like I tell my students at schoolism, I've been teaching there for a long time now, and that's one of the things. It has nothing to do with the art. I'll critique them, like, dude, your signature sucks. Like, it literally is taking away from this art you did. Like, and then it's funny because I came up with a way of doing my signature years ago, where I do my name like almost like little marks, And Joe Bloom early on, he called me and he's like, dude, I really like how you do your signature. He didn't compliment the art, but
yours compared to Joe's. And I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. like sometimes he does his like a box, like he'll do like, you know, bloom. No, but he's a genius. But anyways, I was gonna say back when you're talking about how your stuff is more tame, but the thing that I want people to know is it's like Picasso. Like I know a lot of people, they give Picasso shit. They don't like Picasso's work.
I'm waiting for this comparison. Go ahead.
All right, they don't get it. They're like, it's just three brush strokes and a nipple. I don't get it, you know. But what they don't understand is when he was 12, he was doing master paintings. He could paint anything. And my theory with Picasso is he was so good and such a genius that he got bored, and he just was, you know, he was just trying, experimenting. He could paint photorealistic if he wanted to.
Yeah,
my point is
exactly right. A lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, and here's the comparison: is that you know how to control your work and not exaggerate so much for your clients, and that's actually something that I learned from Ishmael Roldan and I think Sam Biviano and a few others told me earlier in my career, like, hey, you're really good, but pull back, close the Kruger books, don't you know, because the more that you, or the less that you exaggerate, the more that you focus on capturing the essence and the character and the feel of that person, the more jobs you're going to get. And so I listened to that, and they were totally right. But
that's
in the same
% right. That's a lesson people who are young don't like to hear.
Yeah.
This is my style.
Yeah.
Well, it depends if you want to make it as a commercial artist. If you want to do, you know, gallery portraits, and first of all, you're not going to be Kruger, you're not going to be Grigor. So don't do that. Do your own thing.
Exactly.
But if you're good, I always admired artists that are just gallery artists. I guess you call that fine art. I admired that because you can spend forever on a painting, not knowing if you're going to get paid for it or not.
Yeah.
That's a world I never had any interest in getting into. I don't have that kind of voice. I work with writers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm an illustrator. I illustrate the story that's being told. I don't know. I love pontificating about that.
Oh no,
I
for
wish
sure.
I had known all these things when I was 20.
Yeah, I know. You know? Well, and that's what I was trying to say is like, so I think it's amazing that you do that. But if people don't know, you are, in my opinion, one of the best at exaggerating. I've seen some of the stuff that you've done is incredible, and you inspired me early on. You inspired Grieger. Grieger and I have we've talked about you a lot, about the early days of like how much, like I remember Grieger was telling me he when he was working next to you, he saw you drawing and he's like, oh, we can do that. Like he didn't, and he was like, so he was like, then he started pushing himself more. So you definitely can do it. You know,
yeah,
like
I've got it. I wish there was a market for it, but also I don't really have the, I guess I don't do it. Well, I try not to do anything political. I just, I don't know. It's
why is that
at the B part, because that kind of exaggeration was, I mean, I had never seen it before. I mean, just like everybody else, I discovered Kruger in the 90s and I went, well, that just makes my head explode.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of it. I went to the NCN convention back when ISCO was NCN.
Yeah.
I think in 99 or 2000. And no one was really exaggerated. I'm not talking down about the artist at all, but there wasn't as much exaggeration. Everything was very much quick sketch party art.
Yeah,
that organization has really come a long way. And I'm not disparaging party art. By all means, I do it as well. But to actually I had never seen anyone do what Kruger had done. I hadn't discovered the Belgian caricature artist, for example. I'm blanking on the name.
Jan.
All that stuff. Yeah. All that stuff I hadn't even thought about yet. I didn't know it was a thing. I had Mort, you know, I had Jack Davis, I had Tom, other people. It's like, okay, this is exactly what this is. And to have someone, or to see artwork that accomplishes the same task or the same goal in a sense, but to do it in a way that I didn't know that was an option. I didn't know that was possible. And that's when my thinking about caricature really exploded.
Yeah.
Because, oh, wow. And that's the early days of the internet. Well, I guess early days of the internet where you could actually do a search and find people.
Mhm.
And I just remember like looking through, I'd have the Kruger book, and I'd also have the like Mort's book and all that. And to compare those two was always just like, oh my God, this is two different things that, like, to look at someone, the same subject drawn by different people is fascinating to me. That's when I really became interested in the thinking that goes in behind it, because you're not just drawing what's there. You want to get to know the person from the inside.
Yeah.
And look at, you can tell like there's one, I think, well, you, Mort Drucker, and there was some, it's probably an issue of Mad or something where correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was George Lucas. You drew a Lucas, Herman Mejia. Yeah. Yeah. I could picture the drawing, but I thought it was you, but it was Herman and drew George Lucas, and Mort drew George Lucas, different parts of the magazine. Obviously, it's a Star Wars thing. They're both great. They both looked like George Lucas, but you could tell first of all, what the artist thought of George Lucas, what their mindset was, and and I love Herman to death. He's one of my favorite people.
Yeah,
I have a lot of favorite people.
He's one of my favorites as well. Yeah.
If you compare them side by side, one would make you go, ooh, and the other one you'd go, ah.
He actually told me a funny story. I hung out with him in his place in Brooklyn. And nicest guy in the world too. He like gave me some free of some of his drawings that I still have. I haven't framed them yet. They're secure and safe.
Right.
But he told me about the George Lucas, how he was invited to a Star Wars party with George Lucas, like honoring George Lucas or whatever. And he was invited because of the work that he did. And
Herman was?
Yeah, and he said that George Lucas was not happy with him. Like he found out that, oh yeah, I don't like that guy. That's the guy that drew me and made me look like a blob and all this kind of stuff.
I heard a similar story. I think I heard that story paraphrased. Like George was, and frankly, if I was George, I'd be like, oh my God, I gotta work on this chin.
I did I have it right here, a acrylic of George Lucas. And I made prints of it years ago. And then I was at the Comic-Con in San Diego, and I was selling prints, and a few different people that work for George Lucas came to my table, and they had bought those prints already online, and they
I
like,
know the one. I think I
side profile.
Yeah.
And this guy goes, oh yeah, we work with George. And I'm like, really? And he goes, yeah, I already bought this print online, and I have it hanging in my office. And he goes, George hates it. I was like, well, I mean, hey, at least George saw it. That makes, because I love George Lucas. But his face is amazing. Like, so that's why I painted it.
George he is a big Mad fan, especially back in the day. Like, he loved the Star Wars parody. The very first Star Wars parody wasn't even drawn by Mort. It was drawn by Harry North.
Oh, wow.
It was because, probably because they didn't realize it was going to be Star Wars. It was just a movie. Harry North did it, who, I always liked Harry North. He's an underrated Mad guy. I've never met him. But when I'm trying to picture I know there's an Empire Strikes Back parody, but I can't picture it. Maybe there wasn't, but I remember.
I think Mort did that one.
Mort did it?
I think so, yeah.
Funny, I can't picture it. But I remember looking at when the issue with Jedi came up. I was waiting in this is a classic dorky story. I was waiting in the waiting room at the orthodontist to have my braces tightened or something. And there was a Mad there. What? Okay, cool. I wasn't really into it. I hadn't discovered it. I hadn't crossed that bridge yet. And I opened up this Mad, and I saw Mort's splash page to Jedi. It's a one pager, and it's just a classic characters standing there. Hi, I'm Ham Yo-Yo, and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Princess Leia is in it, and she has that the Jabba the Hutt bikini on, and it's like, in my mind, it was like a Michelangelo figure. I mean, it was so perfect.
I
And
remember.
it just sat, and it just, you know, and that was I must have been in 5th grade, because that's when I first really discovered Mad. Someone brought in an issue, and it was still kind of naughty.
Wasn't the cover of that Richard Williams cover, right? I think.
Yeah, I think it was the Mr. T cover.
Oh, maybe I'm thinking. No. So there's a Star Wars one that Richard Williams did.
He did both. One was with Darth Vader taking off his mask, and it's Mr. T, which is one of those weird crossover covers. Another one was just a classic Richard Williams cover of Yoda, but with Alfred's face.
Oh yeah, I love that one. Yeah,
that image cracks me up, because if you have I think it's the Mad cover to cover book, throughout that was, if you don't know that book, it's all the Mad covers up until the book came out in 2005 or 6 or something. But for a couple of these covers, it would also have the preliminary sketches included. Richards with it, but it also have ones with sketches by the writer, and oftentimes it was Duck Edwing. He would write it, he wouldn't get credit, but he would just kind of, here's what I'm thinking, you know. And the preliminary sketch for that Yoda cover, it was one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life, because it's just this crude, just hashed out drawing of Alfred, but he's just like, it's just super funny. It's with a ballpoint pen on lined paper, I think. And I can imagine when Richard, who I'd love to meet, I've never met him, I don't know anything about
He's
him.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, I'm sure when he got this sketch that Duck Edwing did, he probably looked at it and went, okay, you know, because his head, Alfred's head's kind of, or Yoda's head's kind of cocked a little bit, and it's just like, okay, that was an example of a great illustrator who took a preliminary sketch by, in a sense, an art director, I would call it. It wasn't, but here's what we're thinking. Take this and do your thing with it. And there's no other gags to it. It's a white background. It's Yoda sitting there with his walking stick looking at you.
And it blends perfectly. Like it really, it fits. Yeah. Hey, you know, the timer's going to be up in just a couple minutes.
Yeah.
So, what I was thinking,
all of your audience is asleep now anyway.
No. This is a great talk. I want to continue a little bit. I have a few more things before we do the next thing that with showing art. So let me stop it, let it render, and then I'll call you right back. Is that cool?
You got it.
All right, let me do that real quick.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. What Cintiq are you using now?
I've been using for years. I've been using it's a 27-inch. They only sold it for a couple years. It weighs like 1 billion pounds. You have the previous 27. Yeah.
Then they came out with the Pro, the 24 and the 32. I have the 24, and I guard it with my life. I moved to Wisconsin earlier, I drove into Wisconsin for my move, New Year's Eve day.
Oh,
and
wow.
I had movers move everything except for all the stuff that I needed to work. So, and I was actually in the middle of my very first Mad cover during that move. So this is just a fun little story, I guess. I drew it and I inked it in New York, and I scanned it in, tiled it, even though I have a wide format printer, it was still, I think it was two passes, and I made sure it was good, and I got it all together, and I got the inks all set, and I made sure it was up in the cloud. And once I saw it was safe in the cloud, I literally unplugged the printer and packed it up.
Yeah.
So I got into town on late New Year's Eve day, like 8 o'clock or so. I got to my place here that I managed to get. And that night, over the strike of 12, I unpacked. I had my drawing board, I had my computer, I had a bunch of inks and paints and stuff, and I didn't have a chair. I had to go to my mom's and take a stool from her kitchenette in the basement.
Excuse me.
And so I sat, and that was Friday night. I made sure everything worked. I couldn't go to bed. I didn't even have a bed. I couldn't do anything until I know that everything made it. Everything worked.
Yeah.
Just bare bones. And once everything turned on, and I went and looked in the cloud and saw that my drawing was there. Good. Then Saturday, I think I spent the day kind of arranging stuff. Sunday, I started coloring it, and it was due on Monday. So that was
Yeah.
a 24-hour coloring marathon. And I'm sitting on a wooden stool. My ass is just it had a pillow or like a towel on it or something like that for cushion. You know, my vintage barber chair hadn't come in yet, so it was just like, oh man, my first 3 weeks here were just that. And friends of mine in town. I'm in the town I grew up in.
I was going to ask. I didn't know where are you in Wisconsin?
Racine, Wisconsin.
Oh, okay. Wow.
I'm right between Milwaukee and Chicago.
Yeah.
And like I said, I grew up here. My mom is here and stuff. She's across town. And my movers didn't show up for like 3 weeks. So friends of mine in town lent me an air mattress that I slept on. And say what you will about air mattresses. Please don't ever say it to me, because this is probably one of the nicest ones you could get. And every morning, like, oh God, I have to go to the Advil right away.
Yeah, no, I know, man. When I was that really fun time in my life when I was going through divorce, I was literally homeless for months. I had so I just lived in my art studio floor, and the first night I went to Target, got myself an air mattress. Every night I would blow it up, and it was like this weird ritual, because I couldn't believe what was happening. So every night I would take it out and I would blow it up, and I would go to sleep. And then every morning I would suck out the air and roll it up. I could have just left it like that and just like put it against the wall, but I was like, no, this is I'm not going to do this forever. So it was like this weird thing that I had to put it away every day. And then every night I would pull it out and be like, oh God.
Yeah. I had mine set up. I didn't have a dress. I just had boxes of clothes, and to cheer me up, I would just have the iPad there, and I would just watch Schitt's Creek again.
Yeah.
You know, and I'd see it and I go, there's Jason's portrait.
Yeah. That's crazy. Man.
You did that big family portrait in that show, right? Was that you?
Not in the show. No, I did.
You did the
like
promos
5.
for it.
Yeah, I did like 5 paintings of them for that. There were like billboards and
those are very prominent in the subways in New York.
Yeah, and now they're using them for. They have a Schitt's Creek Monopoly game with the artwork on it, and a bunch of. And I don't get any of the.
Isn't work for hire fantastic?
Yeah,
dude,
I called my agent. I'm like, hey, what kind of deal did we make with them? Because now they're making them, like, I went to Target and there's my artwork on Monopoly game. I'm like, what?
That's one of those jobs, man. It's like everything is work for hire for the most part.
Yeah.
And you're happy for the work, obviously, but you don't know if that show is going to be, or that whatever is going to become the next Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
And I saw those. I think by the time I learned that you did them, I don't think they were up anymore. But had I known, man, I would have absolutely been the guy to take pictures. One thing that they do in New York that I think I'm so glad New York still has this in them. Someone goes on the subway with a Sharpie, and they still black out teeth, and they draw a curly Q mustache. I just love that people still do that.
That's hilarious.
And I'm sure that Eugene Levy's face was bastardized on the New York subways, and I wish I had known. I would have absolutely taken a picture of that.
I think Fred Harper sent me a couple pics.
Did he? Good.
But they weren't. No one drew on them yet. I think it was like early on. But
it's a shame, man. I would have absolutely drawn on it. I would have been the guy. So I would have been the first one to get arrested for vandalizing.
You'd be like, it's okay. My friend did this.
No, it's not what you think, officer.
Yeah. When I did the Pope cover for Time, I was having a rough time like, sometimes checks don't come in on time, or
No, I don't know that.
yeah, you've done a bunch of work and you're currently working, but there's nothing coming in. So it was one of those times where I was super stressed. I don't know how I'm going to pay my rent or anything. I do the time cover, and it's like, it's everywhere. It's everywhere I go. It was on TV constantly. And then all the media, like every single news channel, came to my house, interviewed me. I even went downtown. I was live on a bunch of shows. If you get into a cab, you would see me on TV in the cab. It was crazy. I was walking around Target, different places, and people would recognize me. I'm like, this is crazy. I went into a Mexican restaurant. They're like, you painted the papa. I was like, yeah, that's me.
Wow, really?
Because I had the handlebar mustache, and so it was way more, like, not very many people had that. So
I remember.
So the crazy thing is all this is happening, and I was broke. I didn't know how I was going to pay my rent, and I've found out that billions of people had bought that issue because it was the Pope. It was seen worldwide, and I remember thinking, like, I'm like broke, and like, this is crazy. And like, if I got just a small percentage of every issue that was sold, I would be a millionaire. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it ended up taking, like, I think, the deal, I think it's like a 90-day pay. You don't get paid for 90 days.
90 days? Is that what time is, really?
Yeah, but that was I think it's for the first time you work with them, and then after that it's quicker. So I ended up asking my agent if you could, like, give me an advance or something, because I was like, dude, man, I have, like, the most famous cover right now in the world, and I can't buy groceries. Like, this is not okay.
That's a funny thought. I get asked this a lot by people who are new artists. The question we've all gotten is, when did you know you made it?
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure, and I'm projecting, but I'm pretty sure I'm right on this. Well, what they mean by made it is it's kind of implying that, well, you must be rich because you're in that world, you're famous. And it's kind of like, I heard an interview in the 90s with Kurt Cobain. He used to be in a band, I hear, but he was talking about someone, MTV News or something like that, because I was in college, was asking him something about fame and all this. And his first thought was, people think if you have a record out that, everybody's buying, that you're rich. No, that's not how that works at all. That comes later on. That's when you learn that, well, they don't make the money from record sales, they make it from concerts and all this, but it trickles in, and there's a lot of people to pay. It's just like, it's kind of the same thing here, although I never really had to worry about that, because one of the ways that I'm wired is this. My first thought isn't money. It's been feast or famine my entire career, as you can relate, and frankly, all of your listeners of every caliber probably aspire to at least a point where your bills are paid. But the people that aspire to be rich, to make it, to become super wealthy doing this, I don't think they exist unless they own some property, like Jeff Kinney, who does the Wimpy Kid books. That's
or back when Rockwell was, it was a different time,
Yeah, that's a great example. Rockwell, Rube Goldberg, all the cartoonists. That was a different time, but also I learned early on that if you're in it for the money, it's not going to work out. That's not the proper motivation. If you're in it because you love to do this, like me, there was no other option. It's just, well, there's one thing I never had to worry about. And I realized how lucky I am. You are probably in the same boat, that if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, it just this sounds so kind of narcissistic, I think, but it just kind of works out, and again,
I mean, it's like doing comedy. Like, I don't make any money doing. Right. I've made some, but it's like, it's, if that ends up happening, it's going to be years from now. And I'm starting to get shows where I'm getting paid okay. Eventually I'm hoping to get to a spot where I can do weekends where I make, a few grand. That would be amazing to get to that point. But right now I'm doing it because I have to. Like it's something that's always been inside of me that I love doing so much. And
I had no idea. When I heard you were doing that, man, I was like, what? Where did that come from? But, I think it's great.
I always wanted to do it. And it's one of those things where the first time I did it, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing this. Like, it just feels right. It's scary, it's terrifying, it's challenging. And I think that's part of why I like it. I like to be challenged, but I also don't like when I like if I decide to do something like that, I'm going to go full into it. Like I can't just halfway like, oh, I'm just going to write a couple jokes. It's like, no. And it's become to the point where I just can't stop. Like I wrote a joke in my sleep last night. I wake up in the middle of the night and write it in my phone. And it's just,
tell me something funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, it's just, but you know what's interesting about it is I find that it flows so much. Like doing comedy with me, for me, is so much like being an artist. There's so many similarities, and it's weird. It's like, I don't know. It's strange. Like some people are like, I don't see how you could do this and then do that, but it really just feels natural, and I've always kind of done comedy already, so it just feels, and I'm used to speaking in front of people, and now I get to talk about my terrible things in my life, and people can laugh while I'm crying inside.
Let me ask you this, because I'm in a similar boat. As soon as I got to Wisconsin, I started doing theater.
Oh,
so I do a
cool.
lot of on-stage stuff. I started doing improv, or I did
that's
UCB out in New York. And the reason I did it was because I need to get better at speaking. And I was also interested in it. But I have a stutter, and I really want to work. And I was always in speech therapy. But I just started doing interviews and stuff for books and all that. And I was like, I got to get better at this. And so that was part of the motivation for doing that. But when I got here, a friend of mine does the regional theater, and he didn't get started until he was like in his 40s, I think. And he said, you should try out for this. There's auditions coming up like next Sunday. This is like back in January. You should try out. And I went, no, I'm too busy. Blah, blah, blah. And then I went, you know what? Screw it. I've always wanted to do that. And I've done 2 shows now, and I love it. But one of the things that just comes with age that would be a completely different story if I was young. Everything I do, everything I draw is for basically career. But this is something that does not benefit my career at all. It's simply something that I don't want to say hobby, because no, it's not that.
Yeah.
It's an outlet for me. It gets me out of the house, but it's something that I'm not doing. There's no long-term goal for me. There's no, well, if I do this, then maybe I'll get this, and then I'll get this. That's how the art career worked. And, that's how that is. This is something that, like, no, I want to do this. This is fun. And, at the end of it, you feel accomplished. And there's no pay. And it's just been kind of a thing that I just discovered about myself. And I really enjoyed that. I wonder if you doing comedy I know you get, sometimes you get $100, sometimes you get, whatever, 1,000, whatever. But if you're doing it like I said earlier, if you're doing it for the money, it's probably not going to work out. No, but I didn't have the ability.
It'd be depressing.
I didn't have the ability when I was young to do something just for the sake of doing it. Everything, because I've always been a freelancer. And, I have that mindset, and that's ingrained. Like, there's a reason for this. If you have to do a good job on this job, because if you don't, you won't get the next job. So everything is part of a ladder. Stepping stones are a ladder, depending on how you want to look at it. But this thing that I'm doing, and I kind of assume it's similar to what you're doing, this is an outlet for something that it gets me out of my head. It gets me from behind the drawing board. but you know, being behind the drawing board is my favorite place to be. I'm never happier than when I'm sitting here, you know, inking something or painting something.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's my happy place. But I still like to have something else to do that's just simply not related. And of course, you can find relationships. I mean, there are parallels, obviously.
Yeah.
But in my mind, it exercises a different part of my brain, and it gets me. It's just a change that I just love to do, and I really enjoy knowing that I'm not under any obligation. I don't have to do this, or I won't be able to. I won't get paid.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's simply fun.
Totally.
Are you in that same vein with the comedy? Just
Yeah.
because you're an old guy, I figured you'd know.
Well, I mean, it's weird because, like I said, I've always, ever since I saw Bill Cosby himself when I was a kid, and Monty Python and stuff like that, I that's what I wanted to do. And then when I was growing up, I was like, oh, I want to be on SNL. And I always just loved comedy so much. And then, so to finally actually do it, and the only reason I did it is because of this podcast. Like I've been lucky to have some really famous comics on as guests. And this one comic, Steve Byrne, he's in a lot of Vince Vaughn movies and stuff.
When I saw you had him, I was like, oh, yeah. Then I become the outsider going, looks like he's made it.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, you know, when you get into mad, you've made it. But that's never made it, because there's always something beyond that.
Oh yeah. But I couldn't believe I was having him on it. But we just got into comedy, and during the podcast, he's like, hey, you're a comedian. Like I was making him laugh a few times, and he was just like, you got to do this.
No shit. That's how that worked. Cool.
Yeah. So he said, I'm going to be in Chicago in like 5 or 6 months at the Chicago Improv. I want you to do 5 minutes for me. Whoa. And so I spent the next 5 months just writing and trying. It took me that long to come up with 5 minutes that I felt okay with. Excuse me. And I didn't go to any mics during that time. So I didn't feel ready. And about a week before I did my first show ever at the Improv, I did 2 mics in Chicago. And only 3-minute sets each, small things, and it went okay. I didn't bomb. I did okay, and I'm like, I think I got this. And then when I got to the Improv, I was like, oh my, this is a real club. It was.
People are coming here to see comedy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I'll never forget when the guy introduced me, and everyone please. He was like, the really funny Chicago comedian Jason. I'm like, I've never done this before. Brings me out, and I remember the lights were so bright I could barely see the audience, and I was just like, oh, I was feeling like so nervous. But I had my 5 minutes down, and the moment I got my first laugh, which is like the first 5 seconds, I was like, phew. And I remember thinking in my head, act like you've done this 100 times. And so I just felt confident. I walked around like I've done this a million times.
Right. And
I did really well. I got off stage, and Steve came back there, and I was like, did you get this? Did you see it? And he goes, yeah. He's like, not bad. He's like, and he goes, maybe next time don't start off with a masturbation joke. Like work your way into there.
Agree to disagree, but whatever.
Yeah. And then he goes, if you want, come back the next 2 nights. And so I came back the next 2 nights, and I still did the masturbation joke because I only had 5 minutes of material. That was all I had. Right? I can't just like come up with something else. So
write what you know.
Yeah, and that's basically what I do. I write. What's funny to me, what makes me laugh. That's what I do. And then in 2021, he had me come back for 3 more nights at the Improv.
Wow.
As a guest spot, and then next weekend I've got a promotion. He's here next weekend at the Chicago Improv. And I'm actually on the show, like as a comedian. I'm doing 8 minutes Friday and Saturday night, and then Sunday, Sunday I'm hosting the show, which is it's amazing. So full circle, and so he's the one that pulled me in, and but once I started, I couldn't stop. Like
that's
it's
a
just
good mentor to have. Have you done a check spot yet?
Done what?
Have you done a check spot yet?
What's that mean?
It's at if there's a bunch of comedians lined up, there's always one near the end who happens to be on when the waitresses start handing the checks to people at the tables.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
carting around with their wallets and all that. That's called the check spot.
Oh, I see. No, I haven't done that. No. Last weekend
I'll make some calls.
Yeah. Last weekend I featured in Green Bay. And it was
Really?
the first time I ever featured, first time I ever did comedy outside of Chicago, and first time I ever did 25 minutes straight. So it was
You did a tight 25. Wow.
yeah, I had to cut a bunch of stuff out just because I actually I probably got close to 40 minutes of material. So but I've been working at it for 3 years. It's like it's a lot. It's really it's funny too, because when I started, it was like a goal. Like I got to do 5 minutes. I can do this. It was like one of these things. Like I'm not going to turn this down, and I'm going to make it a goal. This is a great opportunity for something I want to. And you know what? It's kind of like what you were saying. Like this makes me uncomfortable. I don't like that. I want to push against that, and I want to do something that's outside of my comfort zone.
Want to conquer this thing.
And my wife was like, and my father-in-law, they're like, whoa. My father-in-law's like, man, you got some balls to do this. Like he thought I was crazy. My wife was like all these people came, like family, which was kind of weird for the first time. But then after, my wife's like, you're still doing this? Like she's still kind of like not on board fully. She's like, what? She's like, I thought this was going to be just a thing you did. And she's because now I go out like a couple times a week, hit the mics, but I'd go out every night if I could, but I got the family. So, I go out sometimes 3 nights a week. It just depends on if the wife is in a good mood or not.
Let me ask you this. If you're say that you have a booking for a Thursday night at 10 o'clock or something like that, and some job comes in.
Yep. That's happened.
How do you go about dealing with that?
So this has happened twice in the last few weeks, actually. Wednesday night, I'm on my way to go do stand up, and I get a call right before I'm about to go on stage that from the Washington Examiner that they have a spot due the next day. So I do my set. I drink a Manhattan, and then I drive back home. And then I go to sleep. I get up like 6 a.m, and the illustration's due by 5 that night. So it's just like,
Yeah. I mean, all of us have similar stories like that. God knows I've got them. I think everybody handles them differently. But if you're like me, I work better with a gun to my head anyway.
Yep, same here. Pressure.
I've had jobs where it's just like, this is why I don't do personal commissions. Just do it when you can. Get it to me whenever.
Those are the worst. Yeah,
those are the worst because they never get done. There's no motivation to do it. I have a dry erase board behind me at all times with stuff coming up that I have to do.
Yeah,
and there's 2 on there that have no deadline.
And they eat at you. It's like,
yeah, I walk in here and I see them and I go, shit. But other stuff comes up that's pressing, and this has to be by tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And so I like it when I can cross things out, and I leave those up there for a little bit until something else comes in. I like it when everything is crossed off, but that's never going to happen because there's always somebody who just whenever by Christmas, it's just like, oh. That's going to be a last minute thing.
These so we're full circle back to Mad, but like Susie gave me like a series of covers that were so much fun to do, and
those special collections.
Yeah, they're like books for Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah,
and so I did 3 covers. The last one hasn't been released yet, and it's my favorite one. I think it's the best one I've ever done. And, but the cool thing is she wanted me to do like, kind of like a sort of a vintage, almost like Norman Mingo kind of a feel on all the covers, but also my style. But so I was trying to do like sort of a vintage feel, but still look like my work. Right. But the same thing, like she gives me more time than I'm used to. Like I'm used to like 2 days tops on a deadline. And I get like 2 weeks or more to do it. And so then what happens is I'm supposed to be working on it, but then, someone else calls me for a quick one day. I can't turn that down.
I could take a nap right now. I don't have to do that right now. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh shit, I only have 2 more days left for this cover. And I gotta, but the cool thing I was going to say about these Mad things is like, I've had a blast. Painting Alfred E. Newman is like a dream come true. It's just the most exciting thing to be able to work on something like that. This new cover, I've got him in a trash can going over Niagara Falls, and I'm like, and it's so
really?
it's so much fun.
I
I got to do like some cartoon rats and mice and different things in there, and it was just so much fun to do. And
you
then
did the underwater diver one and the dumpster one.
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a series of treasure trove of trash of.
Yeah.
So every cover has like Mad magazines in there, and there's like hidden things I hid in every cover, which was fun.
I love doing that. That's the best part about those thrown in gags. That
I have a shark fin. There's a shark fin in every cover. There's
one in the dumpster. Oh, I guess the underwater one, that would make sense.
Yeah, and then there's one in the dumpster. And then I hide my daughter's names in there in different places.
Oh, really?
So it's been fun. But the coolest thing is when I got the first issue, I'm like so excited to see it. I'm flipping through it, and it's like it's vintage Mad, and I'm looking at stuff that I remember sitting at my grandma's kitchen table. She always, when she knew I was coming over, she'd buy me Mad magazine. And I remember I remember sitting at the kitchen table, and I remember drawing from this exact page, and now it's in a Mad thing that I did the cover, and it was like, whoa, dude! It was the coolest thing.
It feels good, doesn't it?
Oh man, it's one of those things where I'm not sure how, I'm sure you are, but I still, when I get published and see it somewhere, it's still the best thing ever. Like it doesn't get old for me. It's just it's one of those things where you work so hard. I got, because of Joe, he got me a job working on a Disney movie like 6 months ago.
I heard about that. You just posted about that. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. Oh, by the way, we only have 10 minutes left on this. I can but yeah, I just posted. I can share the work now. But it was one of those things that like I worked so hard on this. It was
backgrounds.
Yeah, and it was I've never done it before, but I did well enough that they ended up giving me like these huge key scenes.
Oh wow.
And literally like one of the background paintings I did took 6 weeks to paint. It was thousands.
Are you doing them on canvas, or are you doing them digitally?
No, digitally, meant to kind of feel like gouache, but I painted thousands of trees, just thousands of bushes and trees and flowers and grass. And I actually skipped through the movie today to see how it looks. And I can't even, it's one of those things where you work so hard, you don't get out much. I think that's what I do like about comedy is I get to get out. But to finally see it, I was like, this is so amazing. I can't believe I'm in a Disney. And the cool part about it is the scenes that I'm in. This whole section is all my background paintings in this one. It's like 3 or 4 minutes, and it's all mine. I'm like, that is
wow! Can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I'm so excited. I can't wait for my daughter to see it. It's got the girl that sings for Frozen singing.
Artists, that's that reminds me of something I talk about a lot. People say like, well, the people would know me from one of two things. They'll know you from, whatever, but anybody in commercial art, the ones who are successful are good at seeing open doors. I was always very good at that. And I've done stuff that, frankly, wouldn't impress the Mad fans or the children's book fans, but, you do it and, a gig's a gig.
Right.
And I always like the Schitt's Creek thing. It was like, oh, that was Siler's gig, and everything's a gig. And it's always neat to see that that people are working, but I always get a kick out of like just kind of being one of the ones in the know who knows.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, I know the story behind that, or I know what that person did to get that, and look at them.
Which reminds me, I wanted to ask you before, because we only have a few minutes left of this session, and then I want to show your work. But the stuff that you've been doing for SNL, I want to bring up. That is so awesome. How did that come about? The work is cool too. I think it was like in a bit, right? Like they showed it.
Yeah. I got my first gig. I was trying to think of it. Someone asked me, how'd you get that? And I don't remember the detail. I've been doing stuff for them for years. probably since, I don't know, 2014 or 15. And someone couldn't do it. Someone dropped the ball. And I guess somehow, I don't remember if they recommended me or someone at NBC knew me or what, but I got that call. And
That's so awesome.
For everybody who doesn't know, if there's any sketch or bit that needs a drawing to help sell the gag, I'm one of the people that they call. I don't know if they have a stable or what, but we have a good relationship. Those
so
are
cool.
always interesting jobs because I will get an email or a text on Thursday night saying, "Are you available to do something for this upcoming show?" And they'll kind of give me an idea. It's going to be 25 drawings or it's going to be one drawing.
Mhm.
Either way, my knee-jerk response is, "Yep."
Yeah,
Of course. I'll worry about it later.
Yeah.
And sometimes, either way, it's always along that, whether it's 25 drawings or one. If it's one, like this last one was, this is November 2022. It was one drawing, and I was up almost all night doing it. This one actually got a lot of art direction, which is unusual.
Is that the one with Amy Schumer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The setup was they're in a courtroom and they're being obnoxious. And at one point in it, the judge says, Kenan Thompson says, "What are you doing?" They goes back to them and they're like making kissy faces at something. We're posing for the cartoonist.
Yeah.
The courtroom sketch guy. And because I get the script. So I did the final few seconds of that skit. They show the courtroom sketch.
Yeah.
And it was them, just being goofy. And
so awesome.
It was cool. I've done some that were killers. I love doing it, and I'm happy to do it. But I did one last October I was up all night. It was about the movie Cars, and I had never seen the movie Cars. I knew it, but I couldn't and I had to draw the characters doing different stuff. And I couldn't just Google the characters. I had to watch the movie to get to know the characters. It's back to caricature. You have to know deep down who you're drawing, and it's no different with Pixar characters. So I had to watch the movie. I lost 2 hours there. Then I had to spend a couple hours just sketching, making sure I had a feel for it. And then, so I probably started the final art to that one at midnight on Friday. It was due at like 1:00 on Saturday. I think I got that one in at like 3 for the dress rehearsal. But the thing about those is, they're fun. It's high pressure, and it's everything else gets put on hold. There's no way to know if it will actually air.
Yeah.
Because for that show, they do more content than they need, and the writers are constantly shuffling things around. They're doing this and that, and I've done some really funny bits for that show that they got killed. It's not a reflection on me. It's just they just it doesn't really fit with the flow. Blah blah blah.
Right.
And, the deal is, it doesn't matter to me. I get paid the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the deal is, if it doesn't make air, I can't share it. So on my external hard drives, I've got with all the clients in it. There's one SNL, and there's used and unused, and some of the ones that are unused just go, "Oh, I wish that would have aired. That would have been funny."
Oh, that's a bummer.
Some are funny, some are more successful than others. I love working for them because they're great. It's kind of it's very strange. The writers who I deal with the art department. They absolutely understand what they're asking of me.
Yeah.
And they wouldn't have. I would do it anyway. It's a great gig, but they're all. I don't want to say apologetic, but they're always like aware that, oh man, sorry, it's going to be a long night. If I could send you a pot of coffee, I would. They're very empathetic about that. So they're always great to work for, and it's. I get 2 or 3 of those a year, and the thing that always strikes me about Saturday Night Live is that generally I'm up all night Friday night into Saturday, get it turned in, and then I tell myself I'll watch it tomorrow. I'll stream it or something like that. I always sit up and watch it because it's a thrill, especially if I didn't get a word. They're nice enough to tell me. I'll get an email or a text saying, "I got killed. Don't worry about it."
Yeah.
Then I go, But if it's on, I'll watch it, and it's always a thrill, because
Yeah.
I love it. I'm a big comedy nerd like
Yeah.
you. But what gets me is instantly I'll start getting messages from people who are watching the show, and I don't get a credit. I've never watched the credits, but I don't get a credit. Sometimes I'll put my little 3/E in the lower corner just for whatever reason, but generally no. It always amazes me that people would recognize me in those drawings, and I'll get messages.
I saw right away. I'm like, oh, that's Ed Steckley. I could tell right away.
This one maybe but I mean, this is a good example of a caricature that got kind of art directed. But I've done ones that aren't caricature, and it's like, how did you? Way to go! First of all, people are watching live, which is like, wow, okay, great, and that people are paying attention enough to drop me a line. It's just I always get a kick out of that. I don't know why. It's just I'm happy that people are watching, comedy, live TV. It's flattering when my friends see it and they go, "Oh, cool,"
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just kind of a neat thing. I'm always kind of shocked at that. Like, I tend to watch the show. In New York, it's on at 11:30.
Oh, okay.
In the Midwest, it's on at 10:30, so it's not so bad. There, it'd be like people are watching the show and paying attention. And I just think that's great. I'm happy. I love being a part of it. I do working for Saturday Live is great, but by the time one job is done, I'm done because I have to take a day off, and I just can't be doing the all-nighters and bounce back like I used to. But it'll be months before they call again, and by that time I kind of forget about it. In fact, I've done a lot of interviews and podcasts where they.
Hey everybody, so sorry that the podcast ended so abruptly. I lost connection, and but Ed says he loves you. He says goodbye. It was great. He's so happy that you listened to our conversation. So am I. Thank you so much. And you know what? Here's the cool thing. There's going to be more with Ed. All right. This was just for the regular podcast, but if you want to see more of Ed Steckley, jump on over to my Patreon, patreon.com/Jason Seiler. I'm doing a very special podcast with Ed Steckley where he's going to show his work. He's going to show close-ups. He's going to show progress and talk about his style, his technique, and everything. So make sure, if you want to see that, make sure you check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Jason Seiler. And as always, thank you so much. Actually, before I get going, also make sure to check out Ed's Instagram. I think it's just his Instagram is just Ed Steckley Illustrator. So check that out. And as always, thank you so much for joining and supporting the podcast. I really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time.